Okay.
Hello, everybody. We're going to give another minute or two to let everybody join the Zoom call, but welcome, and we're really looking forward to our discussion this evening. So it looks like I think the number of people joining has slowed down a little bit. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this year's Fort Collins Book Fest. This is our first online session, so you are groundbreaking this year. My name is Michelle Wilde, and I am the head of research support and community engagement at the Colorado State University Libraries. I love dogs, and I'm currently owned by a 2-year-old rescued Shepherd mix. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize a few of our festival sponsors. The Book Fest is produced by the Poudre River Public Library District. Our presenting sponsors are Old Firehouse Books, the Colorado State University Libraries, and the CSU English Department. Further support has been provided by Colorado Creative Industries, Poudre River Friends of the Library, Poudre Library Trust, Colorado Humanities, Front Range Community College, and Liggett, Johnson, and Goodman. And also our amazing media sponsors are KUNC and 105.5 Colorado Sound. Thank you to all of them for all of their support of this project. So a couple of housekeeping notes. Because this is a presentation, instead of using the chat, we're going to be using the Q&A function to ask questions of our panelists. If you'd like to see the Q&A function, if you mouse over your Zoom window, you'll see at the bottom of the page right next to the participants link where it tells you how many people are in the meetings, there is a little link to Q&A. And if you put your questions in there, we'll be able to see them, and we'll have a time for questions at the end of this session. We'll also put information about the books and the authors and where you can go and get their books. And I just want to give a plug to Old Firehouse Books, because Old Firehouse Books has all of the titles that we're going to talk to tonight. So please feel free to put questions in as you think of them, and we'll save most of the audience questions for the end of the panel. So with that, let's get our session started. I'm going to introduce each author and give them a chance to read from their books, and then we'll start with some questions. So I'd like to first introduce Cary Unkelbach. Cary grew up in a family that bred, raised, trained, and showed their Labrador retrievers for more than 40 years. She learned at an early age from her author parents, Evie and Kurt Unkelbach, the importance of responsible dog ownership and reputable canine breeding practices. She's trained and shown Labradors at AKC competitions ever since the age of 8, first in the conformation ring and later in obedience, rally, tracking, and working certificate trials. She and her husband have bred Labrador litters, always trying to improve their dog's quality. Before her legal career, Cary was a reporter for the Hartford, Connecticut Times and the Hartford Courant newspapers. She's been a prosecutor in Denver, Metropolitan County, and a civil litigator. Cary's articles have appeared in Dog World, Labrador Quarterly, and Police Chief magazines, as well as various dog breed newsletters. She lives with her husband and 2 spoiled Labradors in the Colorado mountains and writes a monthly blog mostly about canines at www.caryunkelbach.com. I'm going to turn it over to Cary so she can read from her book.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate it. This will be chapter 1. I'll just read for a few minutes. She heard human voices for the first time in more than 2 days. Her rail thin body crowded 9 infant chocolate puppies, all soaking wet from the sea of excrement inside an airline crate positioned within a horse trailer. Other dogs barked nearby. The unfamiliar voices drew closer to the Labrador mother. 50 miles to the south, Vicki Weeks picked up the telephone in the Denver home that she shared with her husband. "Hi, it's me. I'm in Missouri," came the familiar voice of her sister-in-law, Dodie Carrizo. "Why are you in Missouri?" I couldn't take it anymore, so I left. I fed and watered them and left. I left a note for Carl to call the Humane Society. I can't deal with it. The dogs are tying me down. I'm Jesse McClure now. I'm gone, Dodie said. Well, just wanted to call and let you know that I was fine, the cheerful voice said. Goodbye. Vicky relayed the conversation to her husband, James Wilson. The couple realized Dodie intended to stay in Missouri. They knew that James's son had helped move her Labrador retrievers to a new location, but didn't know where or how many dogs she had. The canines would be in crates. Meteorologists predicted temperatures in the high 80s for that Saturday. All thumbs here. They needed to find the Labradors to feed and water them. After that, they weren't sure what they'd do. James called his son to learn the dog's whereabouts and arranged to meet him. They drive together to the canine's location in northern Colorado. And later in that same chapter, my husband Dave and I listened to a story about dozens of abandoned dogs on that night's television news. I recognized the name of the subject, Dodie Cariso. Horrified, I knelt down and hugged our 3 Labradors, Molly, daughter Brew, and granddaughter Taz. We all still miss Max, our beloved adopted Labrador that had passed over the Rainbow Bridge the year prior. His breeder's name, Dodie Cariso. How could this woman who committed these atrocities have bred such a terrific dog as Max? I'd grown up in a family who raised and showed Labradors and couldn't fathom the horrific abuse inflicted on this gentle breed. As a dog lover, I want to know so much more than what the media had reported. Who was this woman? Several years later, those nagging questions in Max's memory led me on my years-long odyssey to find answers. I expected to uncover an uneducated woman who sold puppies from her backwoods home. Instead, I discovered a witty, successful businesswoman who bred dogs and sold puppies to the public. This college-educated woman instilled trust and loyalty in many puppy buyers, portraying herself as a reputable dog breeder while outwitting the authorities for years. How could her loyal friends and family have no clue about her deception? Chameleons like Dodie may be why an estimated 825,000 purebred dogs, many bought from breeders for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, land in shelters each year. Unexpected behavior or health issues caused by these disreputable breeders undoubtedly prompt many owners to discard their canines. And on a lighter note, Max. 6 months after he joined our family, Max still refused to lie down when we watched television in the family room after dinner. Molly ignored him and slept in a dog bed. The intensity of Max's after-dinner vigil had lessened, but he stood with a goofy expression on his face, wagged his tail, and eyed us about a foot from the couch. We chalked up his behavior to being overly happy as a house dog. One night, Dave studied Max's face as he popped open a can of Coors beer. Max vehemently wagged his tail and edged closer. "Do you think he likes beer?" Dave asked. "Maybe," I said. Max licked his chops. "Well, let's find out." Dave retrieved a bowl from the kitchen. He poured a small amount of Coors into the bowl and placed it before Max. The contents were gone in seconds. Dave poured a little bit more beer. Max slurped it up and then stared at Dave. His eyes pleaded for more. Our adopted dog was an alcoholic, or would be if we allowed him as much beer as he wanted. So began the after-dinner ritual of Dave and Max sharing a Coors. Another household tradition commenced at Christmas. Each Christmas morning, I placed a wrapped can of Coors among the other dog and human gifts under the tree. Molly, a teetotaler, sniffed for food. Max methodically smelled and then nudged each package until he pawed one, his can of beer. In consideration of liver, we allowed him a full can of beer only on Christmas and at a rare party with his 2-legged drinking partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Cary. Now I'd like to tell you a little bit about Mary Roberts. Mary is a debut author at 71 years old with a family lineage of living beyond 100. She intends to use these years making up for lost time. Mary received her BA in technical journalism in 1974 and a master's degree in communication with an emphasis on creative nonfiction writing in 2010. She did a few things in between. She raised 2 kids, had a bunch of dogs, taught Kundalini yoga, personal storytelling, and 5-car stud card stud to her grandkids. She's worked as a real estate agent for 24 years. She also competes in story slams and organizes storytelling events to encourage the practice of listening to each other. Mary started writing 14 Dogs and Me after the death of the Whack Pack, 3 terrier mixes who died within months of each other. Being without a dog inspired her to see what life would be like without one or two. It turns out it was terrible. She welcomed Frida, who you may see join us tonight, into her home 5 months later. She writes about dogs, aging, stuttering, and the power of storytelling. Mary, I'm going to turn it over to you to read from your book.
Thank you. Okay. You know, I look so white here. This is a lot. This is the softest light I have, but anyway. So this is the middle of the book. I think it's a sunny chapter. I go chronological, even though the chapters are according to each dog has their own chapter. Once again, I felt sorry for a dog who just needed understanding, a guiding hand, an observant vet, and the unconditional love of someone, anyone. Sometimes I'm convinced it's arrogance that seeps into our decision-making. Our, meaning those of us who keep rescuing difficult dogs, as if only we had the skills and magic to heal these recalcitrant dogs. I know my kids thought I had gone insane by then. I may have. In a deeper examination of my motives, I'd have to say it was one of two things. I craved drama, or I stutter on essence. I was still saving my child self over and over. Now that Sadie and Zach were adjusting well, Zach's fear biting had subsided, and Sadie and I, after 6 years, had established the subtle rhythm of when I could show affection and when it would be discouraged. I may want drama unconsciously, or maybe it was saving myself over and over, or more likely it was because I imagined seeing a suffering dog soul. I can't let it go. He or she must come home with me. People always say, oh, you have a big heart, or you're such a great person. But the truth is, people like me have no boundaries, no hard and fast rules designed to protect us from going broke from the veterinarian bills, or having our home and yard destroyed, or ruining any chance we have of developing our human relationships because our dogs, quote, need us. Our dogs need us to be home. My home is not necessarily the ideal situation for every dog. I think Sonny would have been happier as the only and most loved dog. He was no one's favorite dog, and he should have been. He deserved it. Hell, we all deserve to be someone's favorite. Sadie was her happiest when I'd take all the dogs and let them run around the ponds behind Animal House, a local no-kill shelter. It was private property owned by the gravel company and no one was allowed, but dog people were there every day. Occasionally, some horses with their riders would stroll by, rendering all my dogs apoplectic. I'd throw sticks in the water and Sadie would jump in and swim furiously out to get them. She'd bark until I did it again. It was unusual for a 10-pound toy fox terrier to love the water, and her joy and enthusiasm for swimming shamed my other dogs into getting in the water at least up to their knees. Sometimes my 2 male terriers would slowly swim out to where she was towing in a stick too big for her. If it happened to hit them in the face, they'd cry and quickly come back to shore. Sadie's opinion of them sunk a bit lower. It was late morning on a hot August day when we headed out to the ponds with treats and poop bags. This is the day, I thought. I had worn my bathing suit and would jump in the water with Sadie, fully expecting the boys to finally join us, swimming out to the middle. I can't read that. Swimming out to the middle, grinning and laughing, happy to be in a cool, refreshing pond, hanging out with her best buds. I pulled off my t-shirt and shorts, took off my sneakers, and waded in while throwing a stick out in front of me. Sadie sprung off the boulder she was sitting on and headed out. The two boys paced the strip of sand, whining, torn between their reluctance to swim and being left behind. Zach came first, furiously paddling out to where I floated on my back, shouting encouragement. I watched Sonny venture in, but he acted as if he had never been in water before. His dog paddle looked more like a slap high in hard spring water in his half-closed eyes. If anyone was going to drown, it'd be Sonny. Zach tried to climb on top of me, hoping for rescue while I watched poor Sonny sink lower into the water. I pushed Zach off and headed towards shore so he would turn and follow me. I hadn't noticed that Sadie had found a way better stick than the one I had thrown. She was barely able to wrap her jaws around it, and it was nearly 5 feet long. Within a minute or so, she was right behind me. I got out of her way, but she hit Zach smack on the head. I grabbed him and reached Sonny before she knocked him out. Sadie made it to shore, dropped the stick, and barked at me to throw it so she could do it all over again. The two boys didn't move, but sat shivering in the hot sun. I don't think they ever went back in the water. And then my last, I think I'll just read the last, the epilogue. God, the light's intense. This is the end of the book. As I write this, I'm watching Ukrainians flee their country, many of them carrying their beloved pets. A lot of them are large dogs, either too old or sick or terrified to walk on their own. Their humans drape them across their shoulders. The dog trusting its family will carry it to safety. I saw a photo of a young woman carrying her older German Shepherd after abandoning the family's car miles from the Polish border. There was another photo of a man crouching over his dog who lay in the street, was frozen in fear. The man held his dog head in his hands, talking to him. I thought about them when I picked up Frida and carefully placed her across my shoulders this afternoon, her belly tight against my neck, warm and slightly damp. She was diagnosed recently with the early stages of degenerative disc disease. She's only 5. She goes to rehab and walks less than what I want. Today she stops with about a half a mile to go. Her pain is catching up to her, and I'm happy to carry her the rest of the way. Soon we would get in the car and get a dirty chai tea for me and a puppuccino for Frida. How fortunate we are. She wants to go out. Sorry. One of the first decisions many Americans made at the start of the COVID pandemic was to get a dog. Instinctively, we knew unconditional love was going to be necessary in the next few months and possibly years. We knew our hearts might harden and we forget how to be tender with ourselves and others. We opened our homes to the one thing that might save us. Now we watch videos of Ukrainians staying behind and facing the Russian onslaught to care for the dogs and cats in the animal shelters, ensuring they are fed and watered. 2 volunteers were killed as they headed back to the shelter with dogs they found scared and running loose in the streets. I wonder what I would do if I were running from certain death. Frida would come with me, but what about other dogs? Would I squeeze them into my Subaru Forester? If we had to walk, could I put the slowest dogs in my large dog jogger, leash the others to its handles, and run as fast as someone who needs a knee replacement can? Yeah, I hope so. That's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mary and Cary, for reading from your books. I think that both of you kind of gave an overview of what your books were about. And so I have some questions, and I want to talk a little bit about this process of writing with dogs and writing about dogs. And this is Frida. So hello, Frida.
Frida wants to go out.
Cary, I'd like to start with you. Your book reads like an adventure novel in a lot of ways. The story is really unbelievable. And I was wondering what inspired you to take this really incredible, outlandish story and turn it into a book?
Well, one evening we were watching the news and something came up about Dodi Carrizo, and I had been retired from being an attorney. And my husband turned to me and said, you know, I think she may make a good story. You know, I think there's a story in that. And what inspired me, I thought about it. I was a former reporter and I thought, well, I do like to write. But what inspired me was Max. And Max had been bred by her years before everything happened, before she abandoned the dogs. And he was a great dog. I mean, we adopted him at age 4, and he was a goofy, you know, dog that wasn't going to go on the show ring and just had lots of life and lots of fun. And he's the one that really propelled me to start the story and find out who was this woman? Why did she do what she did? And who allowed her to do such a thing? And that's what got me going. Max was my inspiration.
Did you have any idea that there would be so many twists and turns in the story when you started?
Not as many as I came across, I have to admit. I would go down one lane and then all of a sudden there'd be I'd veer into another road and be off on that tangent. And I talked to probably close to 90 people. I interviewed them, and they all had a lot had different perspectives of her. Some had the same and some didn't. And it was fascinating. And her family was very cooperative. I was a little concerned about talking to them, but they were very nice and lent me her diaries as a young child and as an older woman. And that was fantastic.
Thank you so much. Mary, your book is just a beautiful love story to all the canines who have shared your life. And in your bio, you talked a little bit about how you started writing this book after you lost the Whack Pack. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about these dogs and what about them inspired you to start writing about all of your dogs?
Well, the Whack Pack, I never started out with terriers. I mean, I don't know what happened there, but once you get a terrier, honest to God, you're stuck. But I first got Jake just as because my son wanted his own dog. Apparently, in my family, everyone has their own dog. Lucky I didn't have more than 2 kids. And I love these little rat terriers, but he turned out to be the worst dog ever in the world. I loved him dearly. I love the bad boys. But before he died, I got Sadie, who was a toy fox terrier, and she kind of started this. I don't know, something about her. I have no idea. And that was my confession to the world when I did my first storytelling event. And to explain about puppy mills and pet stores, because Sadie I got at a pet store in 2001. I knew something, but not enough to not do it. And my daughter was leaving for college the next day. She was so mad at me. She wanted this dog. But anyway, she named her Sadie. So I got her, and then a friend of her friend begged me. It's Frida. She has to sit in my lap at all times. She begged me to take this dog named Zach, who was a freaking lunatic. I didn't want him at all. She goes, "Oh, you have a terrier, And I said, "No, I don't know. I don't know crap about these dogs." So anyway, I gave in. She was so persistent. And then the story about Sunny. I mean, I don't know. I honestly think I was out of body experience when I got him. But we got this call, people needed to foster these dogs. It's freezing out. We brought him back from Malibu. Well, I went and got it, and life went awry after that. So they were very interesting dogs. Such personalities were so different. Zach and Sunny hated each other. That never, I think in death, when Zach died, I think Sunny felt a little bad, but I could tell he was weird about it. But Yeah, I don't always recommend what I did. I don't. I mean, think a little bit, right? Think a minute or two before you go do this. The only reason I got Sunny was because I was in that cold warehouse and nobody wanted this really kind of sad sack dog. And I felt, again, the arrogance of what I felt, wow, I'll take him. So anyway, there's no reason why I should have had him. Anyway, but I did. And he's part of my story. And they all died within 9 months of each other. They were all old. I mean, Zach wasn't that old. He was only 12 or 13, but Sadie was 16 and Sonny was probably 15. And it was shocking that I didn't have anyone to wake up to or to care about, or who would care if I spent, 4 hours showing houses. It was a shock. And so, well, then we got Frida. Who cares a lot if I've gone more than 10 minutes. But anyway, I don't know what your question was. Did I answer it?
Yeah, I mean, it was just about how you got to writing the book, but
Oh.
they were all really lucky dogs.
You know what? I gotta tell you, I have so many people who tell me I'm gonna come back as your dog, and I was like, nah, you don't want to do that. But I'm a terrible trainer. But I do make my own dog food, or I buy the best, like freeze dried. I spend way too much money on these dogs. She goes to rehab twice a week, acupuncture, shockwave, pet insurance, people, pet insurance. She's already cost me since 2018, January 2018. Well, she didn't cost me, she cost my insurance company 15 grand. And I pay 10% of that. Plus I pay 60 a month. But when they all died, I knew that I am who I am, right? I'm not going to go and match.com. I'm not going to go do any of that. I'm going to get me a dog. And that's who I am. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. So one of the things that I really enjoyed about both of your books is that I found I walked away from the books feeling like I know not only you guys, but also your dogs. So can you talk a little bit about how you went about bringing your dogs alive on the page, especially when you didn't have the tool of dialogue? And I'm going to turn it over to Cary first.
Well, actually, my book is organized for people who don't know. There are chapters about Dodie, the breeder Max, and then there are chapters about Max, and they kind of go back and forth. Not in the same time period, because we got Max well before all her troubles. But actually, Max's story was very easy because I had such fond memories. He had gone over the Rainbow Bridge by the time I started writing. But when I had a downtime in researching and trying to reach people to interview them, I would just turn to writing Max, and it just flowed. It was very easy because he was just that kind of a dog. So I had a lot of fun writing the Max stories. I think that might answer your question.
Yeah, and Mary, what about you? How do you go about bringing your dogs to life on the page?
Well, because they were crazy. I mean, really, they were such stories. I can't believe I did what I did, but look at Frida. She will not get off my lap. I mean, I've never had a dog quite like this, but they were so distinct personalities. It was, and I mean, I remember even when I was 10 or 11 or 12, whenever we got Angel, just a moment of her life. It's just these memories. And when you write a memoir, you got to excavate. You got to go deep, and you got to really think about this stuff. I wish I'd kept a journal. It'd been a lot easier. But when I started thinking about Becca and the miles and miles we ran, you do have to, you don't want to think of them as human because they're not. But I remember how I thought about her, like my steady companion. I just have these memories. I think you remember, it was a hard time when I had Becca too. I'm glad, so happy to have had her. It's a really hard emotional time for me. And I do think you spend a lot of time just writing memories of the dog, of the moment. And then you pick and choose which makes more sense, or which, is more interesting. Because I mean, we ran hundreds of miles. That's kind of boring for most people. But the moments when when we were in Maine, and I remember her just wanting so badly to go out in the hot August evening and hearing those coyotes and the ocean. And I thought, well, I should let her go because that's what her soul calls for. But I was wrong. She wanted to come sleep with me. And those are moments you remember. And that's how you can construct a memoir. You construct a story around those moments. That's how I do it. I'm writing another memoir that dogs are in it because, I don't think I had a moment without them, maybe 5 months. And, but it's not quite about that. Yeah, you just have to keep excavating and keep excavating. It's a bit of a process.
Thank you so much. So, Cary, your book required a lot of research, and as a librarian, I was kind of blown away by the different archives that you excavated and the different places that you tapped to find information about the dogs and their lineage. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you did the research for the book and how you figured out where you were going to look for these records.
Well, I started out with an open records request from various agencies that Dodie had been involved with. And that was my first start. And having been an attorney and having been an assistant county attorney, I knew where I could go to get some research, to get some records. And I looked for criminal records too. And a lot you can just find on Google. I started with some newspaper articles about her, and then I went and tried to get the records to see if they matched up. And from there, I started interviewing people and just, law enforcement, different lawyers, that type of thing, different state agencies, and people that knew her. And those were the tough ones, the people that knew her, because I had to convince them to talk to me. And once they kind of relaxed and they really opened up, there were a couple of people that didn't, but, that's how it goes. So, I wasn't writing for a particular publication, so it made it a little bit more difficult. And I was used to getting a phone call back the same day. That didn't happen. It could have been, sometimes it took weeks. So I just went by email and phone calls and told them why I was writing the story and what I hoped to find out. And I first started out just wanting to know about Dodie, but then it kind of expanded in giving readers something that they could take away from my book. And that would be, buyers beware, be careful out there. You have to ask a lot of questions. Being a dog person for so long, I knew about the OFA, the Orthopedic Foundation of Animals, so I could check the records that her family graciously gave me to see if she was telling people correct things. And I soon came up with, no, she wasn't. And had the buyers of puppies, checked, they would have learned a lot of information. And that's one thing that my book teaches, I think, is how much information is out there and how much you should check. So you don't have heartbreak when something happens to your puppy who comes down with hip dysplasia. Of course, there's no guarantee, but if there are x-rays taken and sent to OFA, there's more of a chance that, your pup's going to be okay if they cleared. Some diseases, it's just, there's no blood test. But for eyes, for instance, now, as of mid 90s, you can send blood in for the lab's eyes, and you can find out if they're going to come down with PRA, progressive retinal atrophy, or not. And if you didn't do that, the dog might go blind. So that can be eliminated pretty easily. So that's why it's so important. But I went kind of methodically, and in some cases I went on tangents, and I went to the scenes and visited, where she'd lived and where she went. And that told me a lot, and it gave me some color. So it was a process, to say the least.
How long did it take you to compile all the information?
Well, I'm embarrassed to say, but it took me over 10 years. But you have to understand, I was doing other things at the same time. I had retained a few cases when I retired. We had different dogs and different dog health issues, different family issues. So I wasn't doing it full time. But in my spare moments, I was trying to progress. And sometimes it took forever for people to get back to me. It's just how it was. But once I got them talking, that really worked. And being up in the mountains was a little bit of a handicap because I couldn't meet everyone. So, I chose who I thought I really needed to talk to face-to-face, friends, family, certainly, and her ex-husband, certainly. So I went up to Wyoming out in the middle of no place and talked with him. And that was quite interesting and quite rewarding too.
Thank you. Oops, thank you. So we're coming to the close of this part of the session, and then we'll have some time for audience questions. But I want to ask each of you, what do you want readers to take away from your book? And I'm going to start with Mary.
Oh, well, first of all, you might end up with a dog like this. She's crazy. She's so affectionate. I've never had this affectionate of a dog. But I'm telling you, if you want to rescue, go for it. Get as many dogs as you can. Honestly, I would get more dogs if I wasn't going to go I'm having a knee replacement. And my kids would probably yell at me. But they each have 2 dogs. So no matter what I did with them, they got rescue dogs and they take care of them well. So honestly, I thought originally I was gonna kind of warn people, look, don't be like me. I'm nuts. I'll just take a dog in. I don't even care. But I think you should be like me. I think you should do. And I think you should support rescues and the rescues like National Mill Dog Rescue, Animal Friends Alliance in Fort Collins. There's a ton of them. Do vet them. I have a chapter that says what little I know about dogs because I'm a terrible dog trainer, and as you can tell. But you know what? You got a nice place for a dog. All I need is a little space and the ability to go for a walk. You should do it, but get pet insurance. That's what I have to tell people.
Thank you. So Cary, what do you want people to take away from this story that you have told?
Well, I'd like them to learn about responsible dog ownership and responsible dog breeding, and keep in mind that purebred dogs only represent 1/4 of the dogs in shelters. So that means a ton of people are just breeding whatever. And I wish that would stop. And so we wouldn't have so many shelter dogs. But purebred dogs, I've always had one, and I'm just an advocate of them if the breeder is responsible and does the health clearances and tries to improve the breed. That's key. But there's so many things that an owner should be aware of, or a potential owner should be aware of. First, they need to think, am I ready for a dog? Am I ready for a puppy? And all the things and all the expenses that can happen. And second, check out the breeder, and you can do it through breed clubs, through the internet. It's very important because you don't want to perpetuate a situation where someone's just breeding for money. And it's pretty clear when they just advertise these things that, they're not even, pure Labradors, so there are no such thing as silver Labradors, for instance. They're mutts, plain and simple. They're chocolate, yellow, and black. You need to know if you want a particular breed, what to look for, and then how to vet them. And I also want people to know what they can do if they come into a situation where the dogs aren't being cared for properly. And that's true at a rescue, that's true, at a shelter, that's true from a breeder. There are things they can do, and I hope people walk away thinking about that. And my book is a biography of Dodie and Max, and it's a true crime story too. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. So we have some audience questions that have come in, and so I'm going to read some of those, and you've answered some of the questions that they have that have been written. So so Cary, we already answered the question about how long it took you, but what was the most difficult part of the research that you did for your book?
I think the most difficult part was actually I'd say talking to people, interviews. There were a couple of interviews that were difficult. I didn't know what to expect or what I could draw out of the people. And so that type of research was not only time consuming, but it was difficult, I think. Getting records was pretty easy.
So we had a question about, and I'll toss this over to you, Mary. How do you feel about cats and other pets?
Well, I actually want a cat, but terriers aren't the best friends of cats. My dog has killed 3 squirrels, snaps their neck. I can't tell you how many snakes, but also my son-in-law is very allergic, so it'd be hard if I went down there covered in cat hair like I am in dog hair. But yeah, I really want a cat, and I'll take any animal. I don't care. But as long as I can find someone who can stay with them for a few hours if I have to go. But yeah, I've met the sweetest cats, and I kind of wish I could have them.
So Cary, we have a question for you. Do you have any plans for another book? And can you tell us about that?
Actually, I've just started writing another book, and it's going to be fiction. I can do it in less than 10 years, I hope. And dogs will be involved, I can assure you that. And I'm looking at the mystery genre.
So Mary, you alluded to another book that you're working on right now. Can you give us the scoop of what it's about?
Well, I write memoir. I just seem to, and gosh, Frida, it's probably going to be about just, growing up, Irish Catholic family, 50s and 60s in the Boston area. I was a stutterer, and everything that happened in the 60s, whether it was assassinations or Vietnam War, the March in Washington, the Civil Rights Movement, really impacted me. And I know there's a lot of stories about that, but I really did not speak a whole lot until I was, I got on stage for the first time, even though I wanted to be an actress at 12 years old, but I got on stage at 62. So it's just because I was so ashamed of my stutter, and that's why I had so many dogs. They're easy to talk to. But I think it's going to be about, how we let our fears take a hold and inform our lives, and it'll be a personal memoir about not even redemption. I mean, from what? Redemption from what? From the shame I felt as a stutterer and whatever. Hopefully it's funny, because our family is really funny. But yeah, it'll be along those lines, and I really want women of a certain age, over 50 or 60, who have something to say. I want them to start saying it. So everything I'm going to write from now on is going to be encouraging. I mean, I teach personal storytelling. I want women to get up there. Hey, I came in second in the Boulder Story Slam Grand Championships. So I wanted to brag about that. I got this crown.
That's a pretty nifty crown. Thank you so much. So we have a question about your book, Cary. Did you expect when you started to study about Dodie that it would be such an amazing and unexpected story?
No, I didn't. I frankly thought that she was a backyard breeder, and she probably lived in a trailer park. I guess that's a prejudice, but that's just what I envisioned. And I was quite surprised that she was college educated, from an upper middle class family outside the Chicago area, college educated, an excellent potter, and then she started to breed dogs. And that surprised me, but it took me quite some time to get to that point to learn. you know, all the things about her. And that's why the interviews with the family were so important. They, you know, gave me insights in her diaries, gave me insights about her that I never really thought. And, you know, I'd heard about the abandonment, and the Labrador Retriever Club, Greater Denver had sent some money to help out, you know, with the rescue of the dogs. And I was a member of the club, and I remember being at a meeting and being shocked. And I was mad. And I came away from the book at the end understanding what had happened. It was very horrible, but I think I understood more about Dodie and why some of the people did what they did. Some of the things that happened, I'll never understand, but some of the things I did. So I didn't expect that kind of a journey.
Thank you. So we have another question. You know, part of having a pet is that they leave us way too early. And so I'd like to ask both of you, how do you go about dealing with the grief that comes from that? And I'm going to start off by asking Mary to answer that.
You know, I think the expectations are, I don't have high expectations of my dogs. I just want them to have a good life and have fun. And the hard part for me was to recognize when I think they were telling me to go, that they wanted to go. I had to consult, once I consult an animal communicator saying, help, does she really want to go? Or no, that was Zach, was it Zach? But I just grieve. I mean, I've done it a lot. And it's not that you get used to it. It's, you know, it's part of, if I'm grieving, that must have meant I had a great time with these dogs. So I feel pretty lucky if I get to grieve. That's all.
Thank you. Cary, I'll throw that question over to you.
Each dog is different and each circumstance is different, and it doesn't get any easier. I've had a dog since I was 10 years old, and it just never gets easier. And each dog is special, but what I try to tell myself, and I tell my husband, we talk about it together now, is that each dog is entitled to quality of life. And that's very hard to say when the dog does not have quality of life, but you really have to put that over your feelings that you don't want to lose the dog. And you know what happens when they're put down or they die. One dog died on our kitchen floor, who was one of my most favorite dogs, is that, sure, I burst into tears. And I think about the dog, and I write things about them immediately, and that really helps ease the pain, but only time really eases it. It's hard. It really is.
I could not agree with both of you more. So, you know, you both have had dogs as companions for a long time. And so I was wondering, what have you learned over the years from living with dogs, and what advice would you give to your younger self as you look back? I'm going to have Mary answer that question first.
Be a better dog person. I was, you know, when I, other than a family dog, I got my foot, Freda's fallen asleep, so we have to be quiet. Oops. When I got my first dog of my own at 19, I should never have done that. I wasn't a responsible owner. I had to learn a lot, I had to grow up. But that was Damien, and she was a very cool dog. I think I would probably do more training classes. I've done quite a bit. Actually, with her, I've done quite a bit. You can see how well it's taken. Gosh, I don't even know what to say, because I just have to look. I learn every day. I'm better with her now. I recognize things now. After 13 dogs, it's about time I did. But I would be a way better trainer than I am. I kind of wish I could still do it, but you know, she has all these pain issues and I want to do whatever the hell she wants. So I'm not as wedded to training right now, but yeah, I'd be a better trainer.
Thank
sure.
you. So Cary, I'll ask you, after a lifetime of dogs, what have you learned about living with them, and what advice would you give your younger self?
I think I've learned each dog is different and you can't really compare one to the other and have one live up to another dog. We lost Ranger, a very sweet dog, when he was only 9.5 last year. And we can't compare any of our dogs to that dog. I've learned a lot about health issues and what people should. My website, just for people to know, is my name, www.caryunkelbach.com. And I have a lot of health issues on there. Including too much copper in commercial dog food, and that's for all dogs. I've learned what to look out for in dogs and what food I should and shouldn't be giving dogs and why. And I also think that it's hard to say. I mean, I've trained dogs all my life, but it's a lot easier being retired to give them more care and, training them quicker and faster, but don't have too high expectations, but just stay at it and they'll love you for it. That's for sure. But check out my website, including on whether or not you should get pet insurance. I think it depends upon your situation. If you should get insurance, if it's more cost effective just to put money in an account and use it when you have to. If you have more than one dog, you might want to consider that. So, because there are a lot of exclusions that you have to look carefully at. So I just look at things differently, perhaps because of my attorney training too. I scour the fine details, and that's important for everyone to do. Thank you.
So we have another question about what was the publishing process like for each of you? So I'll have you answer that first, Cary.
Okay, I actually looked for an agent for way too long, probably for a couple of years, but some of the feedback that I got kind of reshaped my book, and that was very helpful. And so I didn't get an agent. I came close. There were several readings of my whole book, but no one bid on it. The character just wasn't strong enough to be, the central character of a true crime story. And she wasn't famous enough to be, the subject of a biography, I guess. So I turned to self-publishing, and I'm so glad I did. It actually wasn't hard. And I employed professionals to help me with the cover design, which is Max on the cover, and it's taken at Mount Yale when he summited Mount Yale years ago, and also for the formatting, but copy editing, proofreading, those things are all important so you don't have typos in your book. And then I went to an outside publisher too after some investigation. So that's the journey I took, and I'm glad I went that way.
Thank you. So Mary, what was your process?
Well, I looked for an agent for 1 week. And then, it was right after COVID, or not, there's no after, I guess, but it was March of last year. And I just said, everyone is saying, well, because of the COVID, we're 2-3 years behind, which means that's for their established authors. So new authors, I was 70, 71. Shit, I was. Sorry. And I may live forever, but I don't know that. So I just went ahead and said, oh, screw it. So I hired some local people. I had a photo of me with the 3 dogs who were now dead from a while ago. So I may look a little younger there on the cover, but it worked well. And I also decided that I was going to do Kickstarter, and everyone told me, no, nobody knows you. You won't make the money. It'll be a huge. Anyway, I went over my funding, and that was harder than publishing the book. So, but I'm still in the throes of book promotion and book marketing, and it's a full-time job, honestly. I hope to one day. I named my publishing company Side Porch Stories, or Side Porch Publishing. My website is actually sideporchstories.com. And honestly, what I got out of this process is that I want to help other women do this. So I want to really learn how to do this the best. And so I'm learning promotion and marketing and how to get the best, book reviews and get your own ISBN, don't take a free one from Amazon, all kinds of stuff. And it'll take me a while to get pretty good at it, but I want women, even if your thing is, 20 things your horse is trying to tell you, we all know something about something. And I think I'd like to help women do that. And that's what I actually got out of the process. So stay tuned. Another project.
Thank you both so much for taking the time to talk with us. We are just about out of time. Thank you to Cary and Mary for writing these wonderful books and for giving us your time this evening to answer questions. I'd like to thank the audience and everybody who was able to come this evening. This is recorded, so you can always share it if you would like other folks to see it. I'd like to thank Old Firehouse Books for all of their support, and they have copies of both Cary and Mary's books for sale right now at www.oldfirehousebooks.com. And I wanted to give Cary and Mary a couple of minutes to thank people. And so we'll start off with Cary.
Thank you.
Turn it over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. And this is a copy of my book, if you can see it. It's won a couple of awards, actually 3 finalists and 1 award for Best Biography. And I want to thank all of you that participated tonight, the audience. I appreciate your coming on, appreciate your questions. They're very thought-provoking. Also appreciate the Poudre River Library, Michelle, you coming on board, and Angela, you, and Amy from the library. Thank you so much. And thank you, Old Firestone Books, for asking me to participate in this. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate CSU and the library there too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cary. And now I'll turn it over to Mary.
Yeah, ditto. All those people, thanks a lot. This was a lot of fun. Thanks to my dog, who can be so annoying, but now she wants to go out and kill a squirrel. Also, if you want to, I know a lot of women think they want to write a memoir, and I'd love to start to help them. And I do have a class next Sunday at the Poudre River Library in Old Town. But yeah, this is great. You guys do an awesome job. The Poudre Library, system. They are just awesome. I'm just impressed by everything you guys do. You do so much stuff, and Old Firehouse and everybody. So yeah, it was great. Thanks.
Thank you. And I just want to remind everybody that this is just the beginning. There's going to be in-person and virtual presentations throughout the month. There's going to be author talks, panels, readings. There's going to be workshops. So make sure that you take a look at the event schedule, which is at fortcollinsbookfest.org. And thank you to everybody. Have a good evening. And this is a great way to kick off the virtual series. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, Cary.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.